Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Michelle and I are excited to speak with product thought leader, founder, and author, Marty Cagan, about his upcoming book, Transformed. So let's dive in. How are you doing, Marty?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Marty. I think we're more than excited. I think we're beyond excited.
Yeah.
We're
I don't want to oversell
kids. We're like little kids in the store here, that in the toy store, or we're meeting our guru over here. And I'm sure you're hearing it a lot, Marty, these days, right?
It's nice. Always good to hear. Yeah, we'll see.
It means that your work and words do resonate with people, and we do appreciate everything that you do. So keep doing what you're doing because it's amazing.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
I always go back to Inspired. So I listened to it many years ago, and I keep going back to it and learning new things and helping refresh me. So it's definitely something in my toolkit that I always lean into.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, me the same way. I read the book back to back a few times, the first edition, the second edition, and I did a book club with the book for people to learn it. So, and of course, reading every time that there is a new post on the blog, in the newsletter, that's the first thing I read when I get this email.
Right. That's right.
Always learning something new. Always. So today, I don't think, usually we are talking with our audience a bit, with our guest a bit also about their background and how they started into product management. I think most people already know this about you, Marty, but maybe you want to share a bit for some new people that are joining us today that may never heard about you, which I would be surprised.
Sure. Well, probably most relevant, I started as an engineer, so I kind of bring that background like a lot of people, and then decided to get into product and learn more about the bigger picture, and have been working in product, one role or another in product for now 40 years, so a long time. And my particular focus is not on how most people do product, but it's on how I see it done in the best companies. And I'm glad you read the books. I love it when people, of course, read the books, but I always try to point out to people, you notice that we said in each of these books that we didn't invent any of this stuff. None of it is ours. None of it's mine, my partners. All we do is we write about the techniques we see working in the good companies consistently. So we're curating for sure, because we don't write about everything. A lot of companies do a lot of silly things that we think are just part of the quirks of the founders and stuff. But we do see common set of principles between all the best companies. And those are what we like to talk about and spread. And we've had a lot of success by sharing those practices with other teams, and we find that it works. You can share those practices. They can start learning them. Anybody can learn them. And they start seeing real results. So we just recently decided to name that. To be honest, I had resisted putting a name or a tag on how the best companies work. We would just say, look, do you want to work like the best, or you want to work like the rest? Or we would say something like, do you want to be a feature team, or do you want to be an empowered product team? We would say things like that. But of course, then we decided we're going to try to, the most common question we get actually is that they have read Inspired or they have read Empowered, and then they say, but you can't believe how bad our company is. We are so far away from working like that. And in fact, a lot of people would just very outright say, we don't even think it's possible for us to change to work that way. And so we'll say, well, it's hard for sure, but we think it's possible. We've helped lots of companies change, and we know of companies that have changed. So we decided to write a book sharing how they changed. That's Transformed. So, but when we wrote that book, we realized we got to name the destination. We can't just keep saying, start working like the best. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. We don't like to to make up names, and it's very hard. It takes a long time to get people to adopt things. And so we started looking around for what others use out there, and they use like product-led company or product-driven company. We don't really like those because it sounds like power grab. I know that's not what most people mean by it, but a lot of people, especially outside of product, that's what they hear. So then we found a few of the companies we work with use the term the product operating model. And the first question we had, well, what it really is an operating model? It's like, what is that thing? And the good news, it's a conceptual model, and that's good because we don't like people to think any of this is a process or anything like that. It's just a set of principles. And so we adopted the term product operating model, or product model for short. So now I constantly say, do you want to work in the product model? If you do, this is what we're sharing, the ways to do that. But again, we didn't invent any of it.
I did notice recently in the recent articles that you are referring to the product model or product operating model. And the other terms, I think every term in this industry is a bit loaded. Part of how people are perceiving it, and part that people are assigning a different meaning to it based on where they're coming from and stuff like that. Even just explaining that product management is not project management is a big hurdle for many of us, and people are still confusing the two. So I can see how coming with the right name is very, very hard. But it's simple also. Product model is very simple, or product operating model. And I think it's maybe a good thing to go to the short way, only because there is also the term of product ops. And product ops is also a very loaded term with many definitions.
It is. And I've already had people ask me, is product ops just shorthand for product operating model? Like, oh my God, no. So,
you wandered into that.
And in fact, it couldn't be further from that. And so, our industry is full of conflicts, name conflicts.
Names,
just full. I mean, in hindsight, after so many years of doing this, I think maybe it would have been smarter to just not use the term product manager. If I had known, you have to understand, in the bubble of Silicon Valley, there's no ambiguity really. People knew what you were talking about. But when you go outside of Silicon Valley and you use the term product manager, it could mean anything. It usually means project management that's on a feature team, or worse. Like in Europe, a lot of the product owners, they call that product management, and they're not even close. So it might have been smarter to make up a new name, something else. At this point, we just sort of feel like we just live with the confusion, because now when I talk to people and they talk about product management, it could be one of three very, very different things. And I have to kind of figure out what they're even referring to first.
When I was looking for my first product management job back in around 2010, I actually, most of the jobs that were product management were product marketing management, and not so much the product manager that we're calling it today, which is on the product team, one of the product triad, working with engineers and the designers.
Yeah, some of them, that's true. Some of them, not so much anymore.
Today.
A couple, there's a few places, but anyway, it's ambiguous.
Absolutely.
And so you have to make sure people understand what you mean.
It will be
a tough situation.
It will be interesting if we'll have a scoop here saying Marty Cagan said, "Don't call it product management anymore."
I know, right? That's right.
That will be a big scoop.
That'll be the headline. Yeah, because if people ask me like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a product manager." That's like, what exactly is that? And usually I go, "Well, a software, agile, and all this other stuff." But yeah, then if you say project, they're like, "Oh, I know what a project is."
Yeah, right. So Transformed is the new book. I know that usually I think you mentioned in the past how you write the book based on blog posts, so you test the content with the blog post, etc. Is that what you did also with Transformed?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, a lot of the book is available for free right on the site and the blog. And I think that's a good thing. we don't do the books for money. They're for getting the message out. And I also think for a lot of people, getting it bundled as a thoughtful, intentional set of concepts is valuable. But we don't want anybody not to get it because they don't have $30 for the book.
Right.
And so a lot of it is on there, and a lot of these concepts, product model concepts, product model competencies, the product model dimensions, they're all written about on those articles. And a lot of, the community actually was very helpful on this one. Even the title, even the term product model, we got feedback on that. So yes, because we're product people, so we're not professional writers, we're product people, so we write a book like we build a product.
Yeah,
right.
And each chapter is a little MVP of a concept. And some of them work well, some of them don't work well. And it's very hard to predict, just like a product. It's very hard to predict. You think kind of, and then you publish something, and people, all of a sudden, things that you thought were minor are major, and things you're really excited about, they're like, I don't get it. I don't see why it's interesting. So I don't know any real alternative but to put it out there and see what people say.
Absolutely.
Another thing I love with the blog is, I can't do with a book, unfortunately, but with the blog is, when I see questions online about an article, I'll just update the blog post with the answer, because I feel like I should have anticipated that question. I love that. One day, of course, we'll be able to do that with books, but not really right now. Right now, you can get it as good as you can.
I tried to do that when I published my book, but my book is fictional, so it's a very different type of book. And with fictional thing, it's also like art. Like, you fall in love with your art and you fall in love with your solution. And I was trying to see, okay, but I still need to find the persona of people that will like this type of book, and I would like to be able to find them and write the best book that they will read and create value to them, enjoy it or learn something new about what I'm writing. With business books, I think it's easier than that.
I do too. I think it's much harder for fiction. My daughter is a creative writer, and I just the work that goes into every character, every plot line, all I have to do is write about what I see, really. So it's much easier.
This is more about our imagination, than real life. So again, I'm repeating this all the time that our audience, probably most of them already know what the previous books are, but for just in case this podcast gets to people that don't know, so Inspired is for product people. All of these books are for product people, but this is more for the people that actually do the work to understand what this product is all about. And it's divided into the product, process, and people. Empowered, the second book, is more for the managers of the people that build the product. And this is, how do you empower a team? What is an empowered team? And what is the responsibility of the product leaders when they empower the team, etc. Transformed is now the next level, how to transform from, I don't want to say not empower team to empower team, because this is not just about the team, it's about the entire organization. So how to transform the organization from non-product model to the product model.
That's right. And because really the book Transformed is different. Like you said, Inspired and Empowered are really for product teams and product leaders. Transformed is to address the question that the most common question we get, which is, it just seems impossible to change. And how do you change? So there are a lot of techniques in the book Transform, but none of them are product techniques. They're transformation techniques, change management techniques, basically. So that it's a different one. Also, Inspired and Empowered were written for, like you said, product people, one way or another, product people. But Transformed had to be for anybody in a company, starting with the CEO and the CFO, but including all the stakeholders and the different parts of business, legal, compliance that need to collaborate with product teams. So in that sense, Transformed was harder because it was a much broader audience. And in fact, the first part of the book was probably the most challenging, because it's trying to explain what's important about the product model, but to people that don't have the experience that we do. and your audience does. They don't even know what we mean when we say some concept like a backlog or discovery or delivery. They don't know the behind it. So I think there's a whole set of people that need to understand this, and hopefully now they'll have a way to learn that.
Right.
That's cool. Would this book be, if these books are companion books, would the Transform book almost become, if you were to buy all three of them, would the Transform maybe come before the other two? Or because wouldn't you need to transform in order to adopt the other things? Is that what we're trying to say here?
So it's actually not a pretty good nuanced question too. The thinking is, if you're an executive at a company, the only book you should need to read is Transformed, because the other books from their point of view is sausage making, right? It's like they don't really care. They just want to make sure the good stuff comes out. So only book they should need is Transformed. However, if you're a practitioner like we are, right, and we all build products, then you probably are going to start with the skills first. Like, how do you do product discovery? And then that will open up the question that in your company, unless they're already working this way, how would you change? And so we think they'll read Transformed after that.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm kind of contemplating it, and I'm trying to maybe we should do it this way. I'm looking at the back experience that I have in a company I worked for a few years ago, and I knew the company needs to change. From the day one that I joined the company, I knew that they are a feature factory. I mean, I knew it even more when I learned, the stakeholders and how they work and all that stuff. But I was the first real product manager over there. They had product owners, but we know our opinions about product owners, and I share your opinion about that. We all share it. Those product owners also were promoted from business analyst. So they still had the business analyst mindset. And then we had the CTO and we had the CEO. And my approach for this, I didn't have the book Transformed. It wasn't available back then. So I was trying to put their mindset into a product model. And I had that challenge. How do I do it? The same question that you raised, like, how do you do that? But as a practitioner that is in the company, trying to move the company towards that. And it wasn't a small company. It wasn't a huge company, but, it was sizable. That's where I decided to do the book club with Inspired. And I invited not just the team for that, I invited the stakeholders, because my idea was that the stakeholders will learn from Inspired. How do we build products the right way? And therefore, it will give them a better idea that they need to change. But you're right. They were not the practitioners. They were not the people doing the work. So they still were in this mindset that was different from ours.
We see there are different sort of use cases or situations. Very often when a company wants to transform, the CEO or the CPO or the CTO, it's usually one of those three, reaches out to us and says, all right, we know we need to change, but we don't know how to do that. And that's the much easier situation, because if you have the support from the very senior leaders from the beginning, that makes such a big difference. Because then they can get to work on a full transformation. We could talk about what full means, but we define it as three big things: changing how you decide which problems to solve. That's the product strategy. That's deciding what to work on. The second is, how do you solve problems? Changing how you solve problems. That's product discovery. And then the third is changing how you build, test, and deploy your solutions. That's delivery. And if the senior leaders are the ones driving this, we tackle all three, we can become what you need to do.
Yeah.
However, a lot of times it works more like what you've described, which is more grassroots, right? This is more, there are some number of people in the product organization that they either worked at a company like this before, or they've learned that they think this could have helped them. And they are wanting to introduce this to the company. The challenge is they don't have the control the CEO does, obviously.
That's right.
They can't just tell the CFO, we need to do this a little differently.
Yeah.
They can, they may not even get a chance to talk with the CFO, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it turns out, though, there's a lot you can do even from the individual contributor on a product team. And we do, that is such a common situation. And we try to show, in fact, a lot of product managers get very frustrated and unhappy in their job because they think they're stuck.
Yeah.
And especially in an economy like now, where you can't just go across the street and work at another company, people feel trapped in these feature team companies. We hear it all the time. And one of the things we try to do is explain, there's actually a lot you can do. And to improve your situation, at a minimum, you'll improve your career. At a minimum, you'll make yourself stronger. But you very likely will be able to get this going from the bottom up. And we talk about, first of all, if you're today a product owner or a feature team project manager type, then go ahead and learn the skills of a product manager. That will be so valued by your company. Do you know of any company in the world that doesn't want people that know about their customers and know about their data and know about their business? Right. I mean, these are like, chances are at a minimum, you'll get promoted. Right. So because you'll be one of the few that has a clue about what's going on. So at a minimum, do that. And I encourage everybody to do that and especially now when so many companies are cutting costs. What most of the time it's the most vulnerable to get cut because they have the least unique skills. And so we want to make sure that you have as valuable as you can be. And so I think that helps. So anyway, and what you did, Moshe, with the a book club is a great way to spread and get more people on board. Sometimes it goes from that individual to their product team because their product team we want to try this. Yeah. And there are definitely ways to try this without putting anybody out, getting anybody upset or bent out of shape or worried. You can show added value without not doing anything you need to be doing.
Yeah, I did see that the language did change and there was some movement, but it wasn't a full movement. So that was like where I got frustrated with the situation and decided, okay, there is not enough movement, for my liking. But some language change, from using missionary versus masonry and different things like that really, really helped. So all of those things that you just mentioned are also part of Transform in the book?
That's right. It's sharing basically all the lessons learned about this. Also, another thing we share is different parts of the business respond to different language. So, in our world, in the product world, we talk a lot about feature teams and product teams, and people understand what that means. But outside of the product world, for example, one of my favorites, especially with the financially oriented, is we talk about what's really going on here is time to market versus time to money. We talk about shipping features that don't, by your own admission, don't really generate much revenue to achieving outcomes, business outcomes. Yeah. And the financial types, have you ever met any of them that this is their world, this is their language. They want that. They just think that the most product teams have no idea how to do this.
Because that's my background.
They've never seen it. And it's, a lot of people in the product world blame the rest of the company. Just first thing is just blame the rest of the company. But I try to explain, look at it from their point of view. They don't have a lot to go on to give them confidence that the product organization is going to be able to deliver business results. There's not a big history there. And, as far as they're concerned, they didn't make up the model that's being used. They don't see that. They're just, and in fairness, and this has sort of been my pet peeve lately. In fact, you might have seen, I wrote some pretty controversial articles about product management theater. Yes. And product leadership theater. And there's so much of that in our industry. We're kind of talking around that right now. But one of the things that pushed me over the edge was one of the biggest educational programs for product managers. published this article trying to summarize what the job of a product manager was. And it was forwarded to me, and I couldn't believe that they sort of said this out loud, but it was so egregious and so obviously project management. And I'm thinking, this is the problem in our industry. The majority of people out there advocating things and certification programs. I mean, if it's not a product owner certification, it's one of these sort of pseudo product manager certifications. And, all that does is institutionalize these bad situations. And so it's kind of hard for me to, in good conscience, blame the executives in the company. They haven't seen anything to really give them any confidence that it's going to get any better.
Right.
And so I think we have to acknowledge that. And a lot of this points to how much the product organization can and needs to do before you go to the rest of the company and say, oh, you have to change how you work.
And I really like the previous point about like time to money, time to value as well. In today's economy, cost is a real driver for business leaders and CEOs and stakeholders. And so like getting like, hey, we can build these features, we can ship this product, but like if it's not meeting the bang for the buck, then that's even under more scrutiny, I think, now than it has been in the past.
Yeah, well, I think I knew it was going to happen. The only question was when, right? Because the amount of waste in typical product organizations has not been a secret for a long, long time.
Yeah. I think what these points also highlight is that the empathy to our stakeholders is the importance of empathy to our stakeholders, but also we have a very limited background where we're coming from. Like I'm also, Marty, you mentioned you're coming from engineering. I also come from engineering. Matt, you're coming from finance. These specific backgrounds help us maybe empathize with those specific people, with finance or engineers, and maybe understand their needs and their struggle and accept their estimates or talk their language. But we don't really know the full business sometimes from our background. And sometimes we do clash with some people because we don't talk their language or we don't understand what really they need.
Or by the way, and I hate saying this, but I know too many product managers where this is the case. They don't care. They don't care. They do care about customers. Almost all of them care about customers, but they often don't care about the compliance side, or they don't care about the sales and marketing side. And so that's even worse than not having the empathy, right? It's like blowing them off. They're like, get out of go away kind of thing. So this is what it means to move to be a feature team product manager. Doesn't need to know this stuff because they're already being told what to build. They're just building it. But if you're a product manager, you have to learn these different parts of the business. It's part of your onboarding, part of your getting up to speed as a competent product manager. And that means building these relationships. I remember because when I was first, an engineer and learning product, the person who was coaching me immediately determined that I knew less than zero about finance. And I'm embarrassed to admit, Matt, but this is true. I had computer science training. I didn't have a single finance class, which I think is ridiculous that I didn't, but that's just the truth. I did not have a single class. And the person coaching me was like, oh my God, so he did two things. He sent me a book on basic finance, basic accounting, really, literally learning like the basics. And then he said, but for you, it's not enough. And so he called a contact of his in the finance organization, a friend. And he just said, I have this product manager that is completely clueless about all the analytics, all what they mean, everything. And he just asked if that person would tutor me. And I had once a week lunches. We went to the cafeteria, I remember, and he would show me the KPIs for the product. And he would start usually by explaining what each KPI really was, right? I mean, I didn't even know what most of them stood for. They were just acronyms. And it's sort of a typical engineer. I knew the acronym. I didn't really know what it meant, and even worse than that is I didn't even know what was good and what was bad. And so he would say, just so you know, this is not sustainable. This is really bad. Or this one is actually fine. You don't need to worry about this one. I remember the biggest shock. I've admitted this to people since then, but it's so embarrassing, really. He was the one who first told me that our product was not making money. I was, an engineer and had never been told that. And I remember going back to my team and saying, am I the only one that didn't know this? And
no
everybody else saying, no, we didn't know this. If the product manager knew, then he wasn't telling us, maybe because he didn't want our pretty little ears, to hear such awful things. I don't know. All I know is that how ridiculous is it that the product team didn't even know that our product was losing money?
Yeah. That's a great point. And like as product managers, knowing the business and knowing all these different stakeholders and like finance and how things work, security, compliance, because you're almost the chef in the kitchen. Like you're really trying to like bring all these ingredients together because all these ingredients make the product. And I'm just going to focus on building this and shipping it. Like you need to know like how the go-to-market goes. And
well, plus, let's say you're the CFO of my company. If you don't trust me, or let me put it this way, how in the world would you ever trust me if I was clueless about all the things you're worried about?
That's right.
You would be being irresponsible if you trusted me. If I was the CFO and I saw this product manager that had no idea, I would be like, look, you can't do anything without me approving it.
That's it.
Yeah. So do you think that there was a trend, I don't know if it's still going on, maybe you've seen it or not, of hiring product managers from MBA programs, or the need to have an MBA in your, educational for new product management? Is this coming from that perspective that they need to understand the business and all the areas of the business? Or
I mean, it's been a debate forever. I mean, literally forever. And some people are very famously anti-MBA, but it's what's going on there. Those people, we're talking about the Elon Musks of the world. What's really going on is they don't mind all the business knowledge. They like the business knowledge. They just feel that typical business schools are brainwashing the people, or maybe that's the wrong word for it, but they're not teaching them how to think. They're not teaching them how to be scrappy. They're teaching them to be arrogant and thinking they know what to do, which is nobody ever says this is arrogance 101. But you pay $100,000 for an MBA, you kind of think you're supposed to know the answer.
Yeah,
that's right. And that's really what they don't like. They don't like people like that. I personally, I know lots of excellent product people with MBAs and lots without MBAs. One of the funny things that happened, honestly, I was not even aware of this because I didn't think about it in this lens. But when I wrote the second edition of Inspired, I highlighted 6 of the best product managers I know behind 6 of the most famous products in the world. And afterwards, somebody asked me, hey, do any of them have MBAs? And none of them had an MBA. And I just thought it's just a data point, but it sort of is proof that you don't need an MBA to do something amazing. But I know plenty of great people that do have an MBA. So I think that if it's good background, even if you have a Harvard or a Stanford MBA, you still need somebody to coach you about what is relevant and what's not in the product world. So you still need that sort of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to be very transparent over here because I do teach in an MBA program here in Toronto. And I'm not teaching product management yet, but this is really my goal. Everyone I talk with at the school over there, I tell them, I just started this year. I'm teaching information systems, but I'm basically promoting that we need to teach product management because many of my students actually approach me and they say, I want to be a product manager. What do I need to do? And they take MBA partly because of that, but this is their career path that they're looking for.
It's a great point. I was just going to say, I have a master's in business analytics, but like I couldn't come out and build OpenAI. So like that's the experience part you don't get in the master's program.
Yeah. So it's, and I would say a business analytics is a different kind of program than
right, for sure. Yep.
Business administration for sure. But because the analytics degrees today are terrific for
Yep.
joining tech.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's just every person I find is different. You kind of have to assess their skills. Where are they strong? Where are they weak?
Right.
I was sharing with you, just like I had a couple skills, like some good understanding of the technology, but everything else I needed to learn. The thing that's really shocking to me, though, is even I was probably one of the worst cases in terms of I had the most to learn. It still took the person coaching me less than 3 months to get me to the level that I could be the product manager at an executive review with the executive team and come off looking like I knew what I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
If you have somebody that actually cares enough about you to coach you usefully,
Yep.
Mhm.
you can close that gap in 3 months or less.
Absolutely.
So that, to me, there's really no excuse that we don't do that all around the industry, other than not enough people care about their people.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the book, we heard that there is definitely in it a lot for the executives that want to do transformation, but there is also a lot in it for the individual contributors, the practitioners of product that want to influence inside their company and how to do this influence. Tell us a bit more about the book. How is it structured? Is it very different from the previous books, or are we to a familiar experience?
No, I mean, the style is, I like certain short, each chapter should be short and should feel like after you read it that you learned something meaningful. To me, the test is when I read a book that I don't think is very good, it's usually like that book should have been an article. But when I read a good book, I'm like every chapter should have been a book kind of thing. So that's why we do the testing, because a lot of things don't make the cut and those don't go in there. There's just not enough value. The other thing that's different about this book is, when you're trying to explain to companies how to transform and acknowledging that it's difficult, you need a lot of examples. And so we have more case studies in this book than all of the other books combined. And they're amazing stories. Not a single one. We said, like, why would we highlight a Silicon Valley company? They were born into this model. So that doesn't help. We only wanted to pick companies that had to change in order to work this way. And they're all over the world. They're in Brazil. One of my favorites is in Saudi Arabia. There's in the UK. They're all over, and none of them in Silicon Valley, actually. But they're all over.
How did you find them?
Oh, well, we've been working with teams for a long time. My partners and
some of them are your clients that you help with?
All of them are companies we've worked with.
Okay.
So we're kind of telling their stories. Well, yeah.
Have you heard about companies that were able to do it that you didn't work with? Because I know that having the privilege to work with it is one thing, but spreading this type of model in the world, how successful people are actually in making that happen.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the first test of that will be when the book is out, because that was the purpose of the book, is to share what we've learned.
Right.
Now, as you know, we've been sharing articles all along, but that's different than like, okay, here, because with the book, we're hoping that people can do exactly what you're saying. Now, it's also true that if you know how we work at SVPG, we don't do the work for you. We just give you advice. So our participation is not that much. It's usually measured in a few weeks. So the real work is being done by them, but we are, they're paying us to guide them. So that's what we're doing. I'm hoping that the book will sort of play that role, because there are 1,000x number of companies that want help than we could possibly do. So there's only 5 of us that, so we can't help that many people, even if we wanted to. That's why, the books are meant to be, to sort of give that to others. But we do things like, in the book, we shared our actual organizational assessment that we've been using. We have a set of questions, a big set of questions that you might imagine, to understand where they're coming from. We just shared it in the book. It's one of the biggest chapters. And so and there's no reason anybody can't do that assessment. It might take them a little longer because they haven't really asked the questions before, but Instead it normally takes us 1 day on site to do a detailed assessment. Maybe it takes them 3 or 4 days to do it.
Yeah.
I've worked in a very large company before, and we went through a transformation of sorts. And it was like, oh, let's implement agile, and that's going to solve all of our problems and stuff. So from a transformation perspective, the bigger they are, the harder it is. It's like the turning a ship around.
Absolutely. A funny thing, Matt, most every company that comes to us tells us they've already tried to transform.
Okay. Yeah.
At least once.
Okay.
And when we ask them about it, usually almost all of them say what you said. They were sold this bill of goods about Agile. It was going to solve all these problems. They did it. They hired coaches for Agile. They do all the ceremonies. They have all these silly roles. And they're like, yeah, we're not really seeing any difference.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's not even talking about the fake Agile stuff out there, which is a whole different problem.
Yeah.
So they think, or the other thing they do is they hired one of the big management consultancies, the McKinseys of the world, and they paid them tons of money, and they're like, yeah, it did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So
you've been advocating recently a lot since last year, I think, or maybe more, about product coaches, and you did a couple of coaching for product coaches. We had an episode recently with Jackie Fleck, and she told us that she was in your New York cohort for Coach to Coach. I also read about it a bit, in your in your blogs, etc. Is that also how you envision? Because I'm with you about the agile world and how the agile world expanded and became a whole billion-dollar industry, where the value they are creating is, in my mind, has its own limit, and it's it's not the full transformation of the organization. It's only a part of the organization. So how can we take that model, maybe not that model, but maybe another model, and make that into the product world?
Well, the reason we did the coach to coaches thing, well, partly I already shared with you. I said we're just 5 people, and there's no way we can do it. So we have been referring people to product coaches forever. For a long time, there were really just 2 product coaches that we knew. One was Jeff Patton. Many of you know Jeff.
Yep.
And the other was Teresa Torres.
Right.
Both of which are excellent, but both of which got really busy really fast.
Right.
Yes.
So we needed a lot more coaches. And so here's the problem. It's not that hard to convince a company they should transform. As long as you get access to the right people, which is luckily what we have, it's not that hard to convince them. But then they're in this sort of catch-22. How do you train your organization to work in this new way if you've never worked in this new way?
That's right.
Because that's normally how it grows in a pick your favorite sort of Silicon Valley company. The leaders knew this. They hire their people, and everybody's training everybody else on it. But how does it get started and really work in a company that doesn't have those leaders? One way is to go hire leaders, new leaders. And that is what some of the case studies, for example, some of them in the book, that's what they did. They went out and hired proven heads of product and heads of engineering, and they got to work spreading it through their organization. But in most companies, the leaders are like, we have good leaders. The problem is they just don't know this. And so the answer there is a product leadership coach. And we knew that for a long time, but we had this problem where we just didn't know enough of them. We knew a couple in Europe and a few in the US, and most of the world, nobody. And so we had this program, and the goal, we told everybody very honestly, we're not going to charge anybody anything. This was all done just for free because we needed to build a bigger network of people. The challenge with product coaches, and this is what I think is different than an Agile coach. Agile coaches, most of them, not all of them, most of them though, have never built any real product. They have no idea. In product, that is, you're not helpful as a product coach if you've never actually been a product leader in a real product company. Right. If you've never actually done a real product vision or product strategy or product discovery, you've never done those things.
Right.
Reading a book on it is not helpful. You need to have done it.
Yes.
And so by getting these people together, and we had an application process, and we were able to get to know them. We did 50 in US and 50 in Europe. And we got to know them. My partners were there. We all got to know them. And, like any group, we found some awesome people. And those are the ones that we recommend. And we get, it's almost every day that somebody asks us for a name of a coach. We don't have any financial relationships with any of them. We don't want that. We just want to be able to know that if we recommend somebody into a company, that they will do a good job.
Yeah.
That's all. There's no kickbacks or any of those
Yes.
programs. And I know that one of the things I'm very nervous about, and some people are already, starting this, is that just like happened with Agile, somebody will offer a program for a certification as a product coach.
That's right.
And we will end up with horrible product coaches, which will then leave companies back stuck where they kind of are before.
Yeah.
They just spend money not getting it. And so it's a difficult one. This book is actually taking a different approach. This book is saying, look, this is buyer beware. If you need a coach, that it's on you to know what to look for.
Right.
And in the book, I did something that was a little out there. I hope it's okay. But I profiled 7 real product coaches as examples. And I highlighted each one. Why is this a good product coach? Let's look at her experience. Let's look at what she has really done.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm hoping to teach people that who would buy this, CIO, CPO, somebody like that. Right. I'm hoping that they will take that seriously and they'll use that to pick somebody that can truly help them.
Amazing. We're getting to the head of the hour, so we should probably wrap it up. Matt, do you have any other questions?
I think we answered one of the big questions I had earlier around for transformation and being able to transform a company or help facilitate that transformation as a contributing product manager that is not a leader yet. It sounds like just start is like the best advice. Is just get out there and evangelize it. Start with your team.
Raise your skills.
Yeah. So yeah. Perfect. Absolutely. So I think that was my big question. As a product manager myself, trying to evangelize things and just put yourself out there and you can really make an impact and make a difference. Just want to note that.
Amazing. Very good. So I think that, again, most people know how to reach you if they need to, but just in case, if anyone wants to reach out to you, where they can do that?
Yeah, well, all our resources, everything, SVPG.com, Silicon Valley Product Group stands for .com. And my email's up there, my partners' emails. You can learn about the partners. All the partners are, they've all been there, done that, led major transformations. So
amazing.
They're good people to get to know in any case. So I'd encourage you to do that.
Thank you so much, Marty. And again, the book is coming out on March 12th. Based on that, we will post, either a link to it or after that, we'll update that, etc. But definitely people will be able to find it also on the website on svpg.com. And I encourage everyone also to sign up to your newsletter because the blog posts are amazing and they will always teach you something new or at least make you think. So that's always what I'm looking for.
Well, thanks very much. And thanks for inviting me, guys. I enjoyed the hour just flew by.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to all the listeners. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to everybody next time. Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.